Hello and welcome to Iowa PBS. My name is Joe Bustad and I'm a graphic designer here. I've had the good fortune to work full-time for this organization for the past 20 years. I also interned here in 1989 when I was a student in the graphic design program at the Des Moines Area Community College. As a youth and through high school, I was always creative and I took as many art and media classes as my small school offered. Today I'm going to lead off a presentation on graphic design by creating a logo for one of our productions, Market to Market, and it's a weekly show covering the business of agriculture, trade, and rural America that Iowa PBS has produced and aired in over 33 states across the U.S. for more than 40 years. Why does Market to Market need a logo? The primary role of a logo is to identify. A logo is the face of an entity, in this case a television show, website, social media entity. This entity has a name, and because we live in a cluttered visual society, we must have a unique visual symbol that people will notice, identify with, and remember that separates this entity from the others. Like the face of a human, a logo is the face of a brand. What is a brand? A brand is the way a company, organization, individual, or in this case, a television show is perceived by those who experience it. To begin the process of designing a logo, I need to collect a lot of information. I need to meet with the show's producers and find out what the goals of the new logo are and if they have any special considerations. After meeting with them, I have found out that they feel the existing logo, which is over 15 years old, is no longer current with today's visual design trends, so it looks old and dated, and because of that, it is devaluing the brand. They also feel that a new logo design could better integrate with the evolving web, social media, and mobile platforms. A new logo also generates attention and conversation and can provide a boost to viewership numbers. The show producers also wanted me to be aware that Market to Market has built a loyal following over the past 40 years and a trustworthy brand, so the new logo design should be an update and not an entirely new look. An entirely new look could leave longtime viewers not recognizing that the show is the same quality production that they've been watching for decades. As I begin to brainstorm ideas, I know that the show's audience consists mainly of people from the agricultural trade. They're commodity traders, importer-exporters, farmers, and people with an interest in rural American living. They're people who value strength, stability, accuracy, the outdoors, conservation, solidity, money, tradition, growth, technology, worldwide relationships, and long-term timeframes. From data gathered, I also have a good idea of the age of the show's viewers, what they do, where they live, and whether the audience consists mainly of males or females. I also know that the logo for this show will be used on television, on the web, in mobile interfaces, on printed paper, printed signs, embroidered on clothing, printed on ink pens, and even silk-screened on sides of cups and coffee mugs. At the beginning of the creative stage, I usually like to immerse myself in the project and begin working on ideas in the afternoon. I found through the years that my subconscious mind continues to creatively work on solutions when I'm at work, after work, and while I sleep. So I like to foster that process by introducing the design challenge to my mind later in the day. I begin in black and white, sketching thoughts on paper, and also by opening a blank black and white computer document where I work with various typefaces, sizes, positions, shapes, line thicknesses, white space, and dark space to help develop my ideas into cohesive arrangements. From those ideas, I usually pull the 3 strongest candidates and present them to the decision makers from whom I then receive feedback. Since this part of the process is partially opinion-based, sometimes they love what I present and I can move forward, and sometimes they give me more information and send me back to the drawing board to head in a different design direction. This part of the process can sometimes take many rounds of back and forth with hours and hours of revisions and new designs. Once a logo candidate gets approved in black and white, from then I begin work on colorization. I design in black and white first because I believe that if a logo is strong without color, then it will only become stronger with color, and sometimes in print a black and white version of the logo is the only option. I'll revisit the design and approval process this time with colors in the logo until a final selection is approved. After final approval, it is at this point in the workflow that I'll save the logo in various formats and make it available for others in general use in print, web, mobile, and on air. This is where I'll hand off the baton to my coworker, Brent Willett, who will share a bit about himself, his career, and the exciting process that a logo goes through for use in a 3D animated video environment like television, movies, and on screens for web and mobile.
Thank you, Joe. Hi, my name is Brent Willett. I'm a motion graphic designer. A big part of my job is to create opens and animations for the shows that we produce at Iowa PBS. An open is a segment at the beginning of a show that tells you what program you are watching. Opens can be long or short, or be made of video, animations, or a combination of both. But an open will always include the logo of the show. In this case, it's the market-to-market logo that Joe created. When I get a logo, I have to decide how it should be animated, and I oftentimes have to come up with an overall look for the show. The logo itself can give me a lot of information about how the graphics of a show should look, but I also need to keep in mind what kind of show it is. Different types of programs typically have different looks. For instance, a news show would look different from a kids show, and they would both look different from a sports show. Market to Market is a news show, so that gives me a starting point. But in creating an open, I also need to talk to the producers of the show to know what they have in mind. I learned that they wanted to be able to change the open every week to add new video that matches what they will talk about in that week's show. I also learned that there were some graphic elements that they wanted to have in the open, like the red line graph. Now that I know what kind of show it is and what the producers want, I have to think about how I want to animate the logo. Having a really good idea in my mind about what I want to do helps the creative process go much more quickly. As a motion graphic designer, I use software that is specifically made for moving elements around. I use Adobe After Effects for most of my work, and it has a timeline that allows me to make changes to a graphic element over a certain amount of time. For instance, I am able to take the market-to-market logo and have it move onto the screen. I do this by setting keyframes on the timeline. This little diamond shape is a keyframe. So what I'm doing is I'm telling the program that I want the logo to start off screen here and end in the middle of the screen here. That's a very simple animation, but everything starts with some basic moves like that. Then I can build from there to make a much more complicated animation. Sometimes I like to make a logo 3D so that it has some depth and looks like something you might see in the real world. This logo kind of looks like it's 3D. It is shaded to look like it has some depth, but if I rotate it, you can see that it is actually flat. There is no depth to it at all. But in the software, I am able to make it 3D so that the letters and shapes have thickness. That makes it look really cool, and I'm able to do some interesting animations with it. I can move the different parts around, but the software also has a camera, and I can animate that too. When I look through the camera, I can make it look like we're flying by the letters as they animate in. After I have the logo animated, I work on other parts of the open. I like to think that an open tells a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning tells us what's coming next and leads us into the middle that gives us more detail about the show. In this case, it includes video clips. Then the end has the big logo reveal that takes us into the show. After the open of a show is completed, there are other graphics to make that get used during the show. Every show is a little different, but most of them need lower third graphics for people's names, or transition graphics to help go from segment to segment, or full screen graphics to help show additional information. There are a lot of elements that need to be created before a show is ready for people at home to see, but every part is important, and all of it works together to make a show that can be informative, educational, or entertaining. Or sometimes a show can be all of those things at once.
Hi there, my name is Fong and I'm a graphic designer at Iowa PBS. I started working at Iowa PBS right out of college and have been with the team for about 5 years. By now you've learned about the logo design process for market to market as well as the logo animation process for this show. Today I'm going to talk about the process of using market to market brand on various social media sites to create a unique campaign to promote the show. First, we'll talk about marketing and campaigns and what those terms mean within the context of market to market. The simplest way to explain marketing and campaign is if we want our viewers to tune in to our weekly episodes of Market to Market, we have to get their attention, and one way to do that is by posting on social media sites. We could talk about marketing and marketing campaigns all day long. But in short, they are the starting point of the creative process to get our viewers' attention so they can tune in and watch our weekly show. As Joe has previously mentioned, when creating a logo for a brand, we have to make sure that the logo can be used in many different ways, whether it is on a piece of paper or on a cell phone. Today, we will focus our attention on social media. It is important to note that with every project our team is tasked with, there is a goal, and the goal is often decided by our client. For the sake of today's talk, we will choose a general goal to focus on, and that is to strengthen our market-to-market brand, getting our viewers to recognize market-to-market so they can tune in to our weekly show. While there are a bunch of different social media sites, and also the many ways to express ourselves on social media. Today, we will look at 3 examples: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And for simplicity's sake, let's pretend our client has given us a few tasks to complete. Create Facebook cover for our market-to-market page. Create an Instagram post featuring this week's topics. Create an image with a quote from this week's episode for our market-to-market Twitter page. Because this is not a tutorial, we won't be discussing in details the process of creating these graphics, but rather a general idea of how they are used to achieve our clients' goals. Before we fast forward to look at the final products, let's revisit Joe's presentation on market-to-market brand. As we've learned, market-to-market has been around for many years, and our viewers are familiar with its brand. When creating any graphics for a show, we want to make sure that the graphic has the same look and feel as the other elements within the show. For example, the on-air look created by Brent. So in order to make sure our graphics are up to date with the current look, we must do some research and create a mood board for our project. Something we can draw inspirations from throughout the creative process. It is important to keep the look of our graphic the same throughout our work, so it will look like one designer did all of the work. So here are the final pieces created for this project, and in a real-life situation, these images would have gone through several rounds of editing and approvals from our client before they are posted on social media sites. It is important to get a final thumb up from our client so they are happy with what we have created. So let's go over what we've talked about today. We very briefly went over the definitions of marketing and campaign. We went over the creative process of creating a social media campaign. which is to make sure our viewers see what is happening on the show and hopefully get them to want to tune in to our weekly show. We looked at some examples of graphic that could potentially be posted on social media sites to get our viewers' attention. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to walk you through our creative process, starting with creating a logo for an existing show, animating the logo for video usage, and lastly, using the logo and the show's look and feel to further build brand awareness. We hope you enjoy our presentation.